Coleman Hughes. If you don't know who Coleman Hughes is, you definitely should check out his channel. It is brilliant. I love the way this young man thinks and the way he has conversations with people. It's not like he's yelling and screaming at people or his guest. It's really a intellectual deep dive on a particular subject matter. And that's the way I like doing things. There's no point in yelling and screaming at a person because you're not going to get anywhere with that person. It's like you're going to bash your head against a brick wall and you're the one that's going to get hurt doing it because you're not really going to change a person's mind if you're going in on the attack. But when you stay calm, collected, you use reason and rationale, which is how you're supposed to debate, then you can actually start getting and breaking down walls of people. People just get less defensive and they feel a little bit more comfortable doing it. And that's like the beauty of Coleman Hughes. He's a very calm and collected young man. And I've seen a number of conversations that he's had, and even he's been on Joe Rogan's podcast as well. So he's been around. Some of you may not know who he actually is, but maybe after this conversation, you may actually really like him because he defends Israel, and the way he defends Israel is quite intelligently. Like he knows his history, he knows his facts, and he recently had a debate, as it were, or a conversation with Dave Smith. Dave Smith is apparently his most requested guest, and it went for over 3 hours. Whereas Coleman Hughes says it felt more like 90 minutes. They had like this weird moment of they thought that it was like just 90 minutes, but then they checked and it was like over 3 hours long. So it's a long conversation. Now, if you can stomach listening to Dave Smith for that long, good on you. So I took the time this morning to listen to the whole thing. It's actually really good. Like, of all the things that I've heard, of all the conversations that I've heard Dave Smith be on, I thought this one was the best. And I say that with a little bit of reservation because he still sounds like a dingbat. But it was one of those moments that Coleman, I believe, really dismantled all of Dave Smith's arguments with facts, with sound reason, and it was a masterclass. Pretty much humiliating Dave Smith. And you could tell there were some moments that Dave was just like, oh shit, I think I'm getting beat here. What do I do? Keep talking. And this is what happens when you've got someone that calls himself a comedian that is talking about geopolitics and war and doesn't really know too much about anything, right? So there's a couple of people that I want to share their thoughts because their thoughts basically emulate mine, and they've just dumbed it down into words. And I guess I'll just read it out and explain for you all. But there's one moment that I want you guys to see. It's going relatively viral over on X, but it's of Dave Smith pretty much saying the Jews invented terror. Have a watch of this.
Israel is quite comfortable using lots of violence right now. They're quite comfortable killing a building full of innocent people to get a guy that they don't like. And, you know, there's been acts of terrorism. I mean, some argue Israel introduced terrorism into the pre-Israeli Zionist settlers introduced terrorism into the region. I don't think it's something that's unique to Islam. And
he doesn't think that terrorism is unique to just Islam. He seemed to think that the Zionists or the Jews were the ones that invented it, not Muslims. And this is where I go, Dave, mate, maybe you should pick up a few history books and read them. Maybe it may do you the world of good to actually read some history for once, not some revisionist history from your mate Daryl Cooper or Ian Carroll, or go on some stupid website. Maybe you should actually look up what the Muslims were responsible for many, many centuries, and then come back and say that the Jews were the ones responsible for inventing terror, because I guarantee you they weren't. Does that mean that Jews and Christians and other countries or other people can't commit acts of you know what? No. But Muslims are very good at it. They call themselves terrorists. They have organizations committed to terror. Hamas is a known terrorist group, hell-bent on wiping out the Jewish people. It's in their own charter. So, Dave Smith, this is what happens when you listen to dingbats rather than people that actually know what they're talking about. And by the way, Coleman Hughes really dismantled his argument there, like in the best possible way. To say that the Jews were responsible for inventing terrorism is so intellectually dishonest. It's beyond fathomable. It really is. It's so bad, but that's what these people do. They try and twist things. They try and change it because they think that Israel is a big bad wolf. Islam is not the problem. Islam's not the problem. They're not at fault here. It's really the Zionists. They're really the ones that are controlling it. Believe you me, I know people that believe what Dave Smith believes, and it's not good.
The entire project of Israel, the entire project of a bunch of Eastern Europeans deciding that they wanted to go create a state in land where Arabs were already living, when it came into fruition, resulted in hundreds of thousands of them being expelled from where they were living or not allowed to return. After the 6-Day War, they were occupied.
I don't think that's an intellectually honest way of describing the birth of Israel.
I think it's factually correct way of describing
it's very easy to paint a dishonest picture by leaving out a lot of facts.
Okay.
This is why we have the phrase lie of omission.
Sure, but I wasn't claiming to have been telling the totality of everything that ever happened there.
No.
That's another moment that you saw, and Coleman, rightfully so, interjected and said, well, it's intellectually dishonest to not share all the facts. You're only going to pick a certain little piece here and say this is what Israel did when they created their own state. Man, that's what I mean. The Jews have been around Bible times. Like, they were separated because that's what God said was going to happen. They would be separated from all across the world, and then they're going to be brought back. When the end times happen, the Jews are going to start returning home, and God's going to make that happen. He already is. So Dave Smith and all these other revisionist history people, they don't even know what's going on. That they actually think that it's a bad thing that Jews are actually returning back to their rightful homeland, the promised land. Just because, like, Israel, the state, wasn't officially recognized didn't mean they didn't exist. That the Israelis or the Jews didn't exist. There was millions of them before World War II, and they were killed by, you guessed it, over 6 million. The Misfit Patriot goes, I've never watched Coleman Hughes before, but I'm about an hour and 30 into this debate with Dave Smith, and he's putting on a masterclass on the difference between knowing actual facts versus Dave Smith's confirmation bias theoretical hypothesis about what happened. What Debate Me Bros like Dave do is take a partial truth about a historical event and then jump to a conclusion that lines up with their argument, even if it doesn't, which I have pointed out a number of times in the videos that I've made about Dave Smith. What Coleman is doing is debunking every one of these R-worded talking points from Dave by putting the partial truth into full context. And that's how you're supposed to do things. Don't just share a tiny little bit and then twist it to suit your own ideological agenda. Candace does it very well. Tucker does it very well. Ian Carroll does it very well. Aside from making up a load of bull, they twist the truth, or they don't even tell the real truth. And I like people like Coleman because they actually tell the truth, the full extension of it, not just a small amount. David Sensible Sam goes, "This was the most satisfying Middle East debate I've ever seen. Coleman absolutely dismantled Dave Smith's talking points. Coleman came armed with facts. He calmly showed quote by quote how every gotcha clip Dave threw out was either ripped out of context or irrelevant to the real framing of events. Dave's shtick, flooding the zone with 7 or 8 cherry-picked quotes, works great on the shouting and grifting shows that dominate media like Piers Morgan's. It overwhelms guests who can't rebuke them in all but 2 minutes. But when he's faced with someone who actually knows history, it collapses fast. One of the pillars of Dave's worldview, echoed by the isolationist libertarian crowd, is the tried claim that the US fought the Iraq war for Israel and that AIPAC, or the Israeli lobby, controls American foreign policy. Coleman dismantled that myth completely. He used facts and figures to show how absurd it is, noting that even the dental lobby spends more in Washington than AIPAC. Once you pull away the handful out of context quote, the entire narrative falls apart quick. You also see the contrast in substance. Coleman, a real student of history, versus Dave, a guy who found direction in Ron Paul and then filtered every book he's read through through that ideological lens. By the end, Dave was literally suggesting Israel should unilaterally withdraw from Gaza and the West Bank. And when Coleman pointed out that every past withdrawal has led to terror and bloodshed, Dave's reply was, "Then I like to have a different opinion." So in other words, Israel should take actions that would inevitably lead to thousands of deaths on both sides, just so Dave Smith can feel morally satisfied. What's striking is that the very talking points Dave Smith keeps recycling, the Israel controls America trope, the foreign policy realism, spin, the anti-war framing, are the same narratives now being echoed by figures like Tucker Carlson. Jew haters love laundering these ideas because it gives their anti-Semitism a pseudo-intellectual cover. Tucker, Dave, and their circles rebrand it as realism or patriotism. But peel back the layers, and it's the same old scapegoating, painting Jews and Israel as puppet masters of Washington while promoting anti-war, pro-Russian, and pro-Qatar worldviews that excuse authoritarian regimes and vilify the West. Coleman didn't just expose Dave's weak arguments. He exposed how intellectually lazy he is and how morally confused and bankrupt he's become. If you want to see how real debate dismantles propaganda and how clarity and integrity crush the laundering of hate, watch Coleman Hughes versus Dave Smith. I agree. So Ant of Ant Speaks goes, the entire project of Israel, the entire project of a bunch of Western Europeans deciding they wanted to go create a state in a land where Arabs were already living. That's from Dave Smith. There is absolutely nothing factual about that statement. You are describing Jews from Europe as just a bunch of Eastern Europeans, implying they are not Jewish or have no connection to the land Jews actually originated from. That's not ignorant. It's historically illiterate. Here is a fact you conveniently ignored. Only about 30% of Jews living in Israel today are Ashkenazi descent. That alone destroys your lazy bunch of Eastern Europeans narrative. And as for your claim implying that the land was thriving in full before 1948, give me a break. The area that became the modern state of Israel was, by multiple credible accounts, largely barren and underdeveloped. Yes, there were Arabs living there, but your cartoonish framing completely distorts the reality of the region at the time. This is what happens when a failed comedian starts believing his own bullcrap and mistakes smugness for intellect. You posture like some sort of deep thinker, but your takes are shallow, uninformed, and laughably bad. You are not insightful. Dave, you are loud and wrong. I genuinely pity you. See, that's the thing about people like Dave, Candace, Tucker, Ian Carroll. They're very good at talking. Very good at talking. Just doing a lot of this. Not really sharing any facts, not coming up with evidence to support any of their claims whatsoever. It's just nonsense. And if we think that nonsense is going to actually convince people, which it definitely does, unfortunately, then we've lost the plot. We need intellect back. We need people that know how to actually critically think again, rather than just have these pseudo people that come in, yell a bunch of nonsense, and then act like it's right when it's really not. So well done to Coleman Hughes. Loved it, mate. We'd love to see a part 2 on the things that you guys haven't covered. But there's so much more like I could mention about the debate and things that they've covered, but you definitely got to go and watch it for yourself. You won't regret it. Trust me. That's enough from me. You guys take care. Be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.